Hey, Logan here, and in this video we're going to be talking about how I cured my eczema naturally. Now, this is a very controversial topic because many people in allopathic medicine are going to tell you that eczema is a long-term hereditary condition that cannot be fixed. If this is a narrative that you want to continue to believe, then I would suggest clicking off this video. If you're open to hearing about how I was able to fix it and how you might be able to fix it too, then stick around. Now, a little bit about me. I actually come from an allopathic background. Allopathic medicine is your traditional, like Western medicine, working in hospitals. Now, I worked for 2 years as a trauma ICU nurse. And so I have experience seeing chronic disease, seeing people very sick, very debilitated. And during my time as a nurse, I learned a lot. The most that I actually learned was when I got sick with eczema myself. And before I dive into more of that background, I want to tell you how all of this started. And before I dive into how you can fix this for yourself, you're going to want to stick around to the end of the video to hear that. I want to go first into how all of this manifested. So for me, when I was young, around 5 years old, I first saw signs of eczema. And so what happened, my mom didn't have any medical background. She took me to the doctor. They diagnosed me with atopic dermatitis, as they do for most people. And of course, they gave me steroid creams, hydrocortisone. This is first line of treatment for most people with skin condition, especially eczema. And so anytime that I would get a flare up, instead of diving deeper to the root cause, I was given steroid creams. And this is the very normal model. This is the very traditional model of what we have today. And so I didn't think anything of it. What ended up happening was when I started playing water sports around that time, I think my stress levels came down. The water helped. I definitely think water is my element as well. And I didn't need the creams as much. In high school, my eczema came back a little bit, usually above the eyelids, and I'd get like a very droopy eyelid. And then from there, I went back and played water polo in college. And then after that, I got accepted into nursing school. I got my degree at American River College as a registered nurse. And then I went and started working in Northern California in my first gig in an intensive care unit. And slowly and steadily, I started to see the eczema start to come back above my eyelid again. And it wasn't really anything to me. I just started taking the creams again. And then as I took the creams, I started to realize that they weren't really helping. And so I'm surrounded by doctors and nurses, people who've been in the field for a long time. I figured they'd have some answers. So I remember asking this one doctor that I was friends with what he'd recommend, and he prescribed me Elidel, which is actually an immunosuppressant. So the root thing of this video that I'm going to try and instill into you guys based off of my own experience working in Western medicine is that the first day of nursing school, they handed us a pharmacology textbook. And they said, you need to study these 50 drugs and you need to know them by Wednesday. So we had 2 days to study these drugs. So this is how the system works. It's designed to sell products. So when someone in traditional medicine learns medicine, they're actually learning how to prescribe or give medications that have been created for symptoms, right? So for me, I was experiencing the symptom of a rash. And so what the pharmaceutical companies do, they figure out how to decrease the inflammation of that rash through a product. So put the cream on the skin and the rash will go away. But the issue is it's not fixing anything. So with a lot of things, with products, with drugs, what you always want to do when if you really want to heal, if you really want to be a healthy person, you want to find things that are going to help you so you don't need the product anymore. And so this is when I started to realize, oh my God, I'm going to have to take these creams the rest of my life and they're not working. If I take them long enough, what will end up happening is they're going to, my body is no longer going to be as sensitive to them, and I'm going to need more creams. And so you see a lot of people with eczema and other skin conditions such as psoriasis. They have to keep taking creams, and eventually their body needs more and more and more. And this happened to me, and I began to realize while I was taking these creams, nothing was working. And so at that time in my life, the only thing that really helped me was traveling. What was weird, I would travel. I went to Guatemala with a buddy once, and my skin condition pretty much disappeared. I had a flare up when I got there, and then it went away. And so there was a lot of spiritual and emotional components to the disease I was experiencing. And when I'd go back and work in the hospital, it would flare up again. And it got so bad, it started going down my face, down my neck, down my chest, down my legs. And so for the first time in my life, it went from just this area up here and kind of on my face all the way down. And I began losing hope. For the first time in my life, I was very depressed. I felt like, although I was making six figures in my dream job, I realized deep down in my heart that the work I was doing wasn't actually helping people. I felt like a drug mule. And so a couple of these things that are coming up right now as I'm recording this video is if you have a skin condition, you can of course find certain things, like maybe you have a sensitivity to food. Maybe it's that simple. But a lot of the times it's not. What I found during my process of healing, which I'll tell you more about very soon, is that I was not on my purpose. I wasn't living my life how I actually wanted to. And so my skin condition was getting worse. And it was actually a sign telling me, you need to make some changes in your life, Logan. If you don't make some fucking changes, it's going to get worse. And so it did get worse. And I got to the point where I didn't really know what to do. I went to all the dermatologists. I went to all the traditional doctors. No one could help me. My insurance that I was paying a lot for at the time wouldn't help me with non-traditional doctors that weren't in their system. So I ended up paying out of pocket. I spent thousands of dollars. I actually went and saw a functional medicine doctor, and the eczema went from on my chest to on my back, and it presented as like hives. And this doctor actually ended up firing herself. And at that time, the only thing I was going to do that I knew to do was to travel more. So I was actually planning on taking a sabbatical. I was going to go backpack in South America. But while I was working with that functional medicine doctor, she told me I needed to drink more green juices. And I was going to go to South America where the water isn't clean in a lot of places. So I actually had to cancel that trip. And I was really sad about it. And then I realized about 3 days later, I woke up with the epiphany that a place in Colombia called Medellin had clean drinking water. And so I ended up booking my ticket to go to Medellin just one way. And I ended up leaving the nursing profession completely December 31st, 2019. So it was a really hard decision for me. I actually thought I was going to go back. I had that in my back pocket. But when I left nursing, I realized that I had a very bright future ahead of me if I could figure out how to heal the condition. And so I moved to Colombia. I immediately hired a breathwork coach. I started going very deep spiritually. I ended up going and drinking a bunch of ayahuasca. I drank ayahuasca like 21 times. Started meditating every day. I changed my diet many times. I started eating healthier, cooking from home. I started investing in myself. I started learning about business. And I went all in. And this was one of the most painful periods of my life. I consider it a spiritual awakening, because I went from a world where I thought I knew exactly what I wanted for the rest of my life. I was going to work as a nurse and be happy, and I wasn't. And I had to really look at myself in the mirror and realize that the skin condition that I had was a manifestation of my unhappiness and all of the things that had happened to me and all of the perceptions I had around those events. And so I have other videos that you can look at on my channel regarding causes of eczema. I can go into that a little bit right now. For some of you, it might be hereditary. Usually it's not. I got gene testing done and I didn't have any hereditary condition for eczema. Usually it's some kind of symptom related to an inflamed gut, or maybe you have a bacterial overgrowth, or a yeast overgrowth such as candida, which will present a little bit differently. I found that a lot of the people that I've worked with skin conditions actually have some form of trauma or some form of emotional wounds related to their upbringing. And so during this process for me, I did a lot of shadow work and inner child healing. I actually saw a Gestalt practitioner, which is someone who focuses on inner child healing. And I realized that I had a lot of negative and kind of victimhood mentalities regarding how I was raised and the things that happened in my household when I was young. And so all of these things are extremely important. And the reason I bring them up is because when you're trying to heal a disease, it's called dis-ease. You're not in ease anymore, right? And so life becomes harder. But the reason that it really becomes hard is because a lot of the models that we're using in allopathic medicine to try and help people don't work, because the person is more than just physical. So what happens in allopathic medicine is they're trying to fix just your physical symptom, and they're not looking at you as a person. They're not looking at the emotions. They're not looking at you spiritually. They're not looking at your soul. And so those things actually matter. You're more than just someone with a condition. You're someone that's very nuanced, right? And so you have to look at all of these things. And emotions in traditional Chinese medicine, if emotions are trapped, especially when you're young, if they get trapped in an organ or they get trapped in your body and they get suppressed, if you don't express your emotions, they get suppressed and repressed, and they stay down and they stay somewhere in your body. And if they don't come out, it can manifest as disease. So I'm sure you want to know how I healed everything. All of the practices I did to decrease my stress, obviously moving to a new country and getting away from the stressful environment of nursing helped me a lot. Getting away from a country that poisons its population. Not everyone watching this video is going to leave the United States, but the United States is like the number one country for poisoning its population, other than probably China. Atrazine and glyphosate are the two chemicals used on pretty much all the crops that aren't organic, and they destroy the gut lining, they cause endocrine disruption, they cause cancer, and that's sprayed on a lot of the food. So getting away from that was very helpful. Changing the relationship with my parents, that was a lot of work that I had to do on my end. If you want to change your parents, if you want to change how they perceive you, if you want to change how you perceive them, you have to do work on yourself. They're not going to change usually. It's usually your own perspective that's the problem. The more that you can forgive people who have wronged you or perceivedly wronged you, the better your relationship can be. So that's huge as well. Ayahuasca and plant medicine combo, all of those things that I did, they were helpful. Would I recommend them to someone who has a chronic disease or skin condition? Not necessarily. I think I was called to those things for specific reasons. I think that I'd have more knowledge because of that. But I also learned about the dark side of humanity through plant medicine as well. So it's not necessarily a path that anyone has to take. It can be helpful. I definitely think it can help reprogram your brain and allow you to see the world differently, for sure. The other things that were huge for me, eliminating gluten, that's massive. Eliminating dairy for most people is big with skin conditions. Eliminating processed grains in food that has been sprayed by like glyphosate and atrazine, that's huge. Changing your food to be a lot cleaner. For me, the weird thing, although there are a lot of people out there that say like don't eat a lot of vegetables and stuff, I started eating a big ass salad um, with just tons of raw vegetables, nothing cooked, and like I just put chicken on top. And within about a week or two, um, my skin condition went away. And all of this points back to gut health. So during the first year I was in Colombia, I was doing a lot of things to heal my gut, but it took me a long time. Now I have protocols and practices and understandings of specific supplements that can be taken. Slippery elm bark is an example of a natural product that can soothe the gut lining. But for a lot of people with eczema, you can see my other video on this, there is a inflammation in the intestinal tract, and that inflammation ends up causing the barrier, which is normally like this, to open up, and all of the toxins and waste and excess inflammation floating around in your blood goes back into the system from the gut. So that is definitely something that needs to be addressed, is gut issues. So to recap everything, gut issues, emotional stuff, your connection with God is huge as well. You don't have to believe in God, but if you believe in something higher, it's going to help you. A lot of times people with skin conditions, they don't really understand their purpose in life. They feel lost. They feel like they don't belong. And so that's a huge thing as well, is to find a bigger connection. I have only become more spiritual because of the disease I experienced. I've become a very spiritual person, and it's only helped me. And the people around me have become better because of it as well. So gut healing, spirituality, emotions, learning all of your emotions. The bad ones are just as important as the good ones. So a lot of times, especially when we're sick, we only want to feel good because we don't feel good, right? But in order to heal and to understand yourself completely, you have to go to the dark parts. So a lot of people, especially when they're sick, they kind of live in a victimhood. If you've ever met someone who's like that aunt that you don't like, who's always complaining about people, she's usually probably in a state of victimhood. And so when we're sick, it's very easy to fall into victimhood because we want people to help us, right? And we don't feel empowered. The most important thing when you're dealing with disease is to always fall back into your place of power, and into your place of, I accept full responsibility for this sickness. I accept that whatever has happened to me is not happening to me, it's happening for me, and that I can find the answers. What I found very common with most people is they will feel like the disease is out of their control, and that it has nothing to do with them. And what I mean by that is a lot of people don't take responsibility. When I started healing, it was when I fully took responsibility that something in my life was wrong, and it was probably because of me. A lot of people want to blame hereditary conditions. It was passed down from my parents. It's not my problem. Or, oh, it's all in the food. But they don't change their food, or they don't change their habits. They don't change the way they think. Your thoughts, how you speak about yourself, all of these things are huge. They're a window to how you view yourself. If you are saying, I can never heal, or if you're saying, I have eczema, I was diagnosed with this condition, you are reinstating that you're disempowered. But if you say, I currently have an itch on my skin, and I'm going to fix it pretty soon, that's a completely different mind frame. So I got a lot to talk about with this subject. I currently work with a company. We work on full body detox. We've seen a lot of people with skin conditions. Most of the time it comes from not addressing a root cause, such as gut health. So if you're interested, or you know someone who has some kind of chronic debilitating disease, I'd be more than happy to hop on a call. I'll put a link below, and we can talk about how we might be able to help you. Other than that, I'd love to hear your comments below about any of the tidbits that came up for you, or any questions you have, or any future videos you'd like me to post. Thank you guys, and happy healing. Ciao.